Hi, my name is Valerie Hansen, and I teach pre-modern Chinese history at Yale. I've been here a long time, since the late 80s, and this painting, this is a picture of the Rainbow Bridge from the Qingming Scroll. And this is the bridge that you'll be making a copy of with the kits that you have obtained. The bridge is really an architectural marvel because it's so large. And at the time, people wrote about these. They called them rainbow bridges because you can see why. Or maybe I should ask you, why do you think that they called these rainbow bridges? They're all the same color, so that's not like a rainbow, but the shape is like a rainbow, right? And people wrote about, visitors to China wrote about these bridges, and Chinese people wrote about these bridges. Multiple cities in North China had bridges like this. And the thing that's so interesting about this painting is that you can use it as a model for how to construct such a bridge. And the PBS show Nova did that in the late 90s. And you'll see when you look at this picture that there's no rulers anywhere. So, right, so you think, well, how did they know how big the bridge was? Well, they used the people as a ruler. And I don't know what measure they used, if they thought each person was 5 feet or 5 feet 4 inches tall. But anyway, they used the people as a ruler to figure out how big the bridge was. And then they made a replica of it that you can still visit. It's outside of Shanghai, not too far outside of Shanghai. And I have visited the replica. In terms of the technique of construction, you can see here that the structure of the bridge is these wooden beams, and they're tied together with string, but they're nailed together too. And Chinese construction, this painting, the date is not certain. Art historians debate when it was painted. We know it was painted before 1186 because the date 1186 appears on the painting, but we don't know how much before 1186. And recently, a historian at NYU named Jonathan Hay has suggested the year 1000, which I think is a good approximation for when it was made. And so in the year 1000, we can see that they made bridges with these wooden pillars, tied them together, and then they used nails to make sure to secure the wood for a long time. Here, under the bridge is a walkway. So the bridge did not interrupt the activity on the side of the river. There's a walkway. And then this painting actually shows a boat in trouble. And when people look at it the first time, it's a little hard to get to see that. But do you see here that the men on the front of the boat, they're all have their hands out like as if they're trying to catch something? And the reason is that there was a rope connecting the boat, to these men here. The boat was being pulled up river, but the rope snapped, and so everybody on the bridge is trying to get this part of the boat to catch a rope, either from these people here under the bridge, or also people on top of the bridge are trying to help and toss a rope, because what they don't want to do is have this part of the boat go this way all the way across the river and cause an accident, because coming under the bridge is another boat. There's actually a lot of suspense in this painting. We're not used to it. We don't see it. But if you were unrolling the scroll inch by inch, you would see this and think, oh, that's part of a boat, not this part here. This is a decoration attached to this inn. But this here is a giant oar connected to the boat. You would see that, and then you would think, well, what's going to happen with the boat that this oar is part of? And as you unscrolled, you realize that there isn't going to be an accident. You don't know what's going to happen here, but you do realize as you look at it that this boat has just tied up on this side of the river, so it won't crash with this boat. So back to the bridge. We've got the I was going to say the bridge shows this is from the Sung Dynasty, and it's an incredibly prosperous time. There's lots of markets all over China, and there's a market on this bridge. There's so much commerce in China that the markets have exploded outside of marketplaces. And on this bridge, there are a lot of snacks, food stands, and that would be true of any Chinese market today. But there's also, like, this is a hardware store. And the metal goods that are for sale are laid out on the ground. As I told you at the beginning, I'm a Chinese historian, and I've been working at Yale for more than 30 years. And the focus of my work is the basically everything we can know about people in China who are not officials. So much of what we know about Chinese history is about the emperor and his officials, and they're the subject of most of our documents. And then we have to look to unusual materials to find out more about ordinary people. And so that's how art comes into my work. And I was going to say, right now is a moment. We have a new president, and he's trying to decide. He and his advisors are trying to decide what kind of policy we should have, what kind of foreign policy we should have um, for China. And I think, and I don't know what they're going to decide, and I'm not sure what I would decide if I were in their shoes, but I think it's very important to try to understand how the Chinese see themselves, and how, when they come to a negotiating table with America, what they're thinking. And one of the things that their president, a man named Xi Jinping, has said is that China needs to regain its rightful place in the world. And I think when he says that, he may be thinking about the Song Dynasty. This is a time when China was the biggest country in the world. It had the largest population. It had 100 million people at a time when the world population was around 250 million. So maybe 40% of the world lived in China. It was very wealthy, certainly the richest place in the world, very learned society with many people, many men, especially, not so many women, who had been reading and studying Chinese texts for their entire lives. I've had the good fortune to come into contact with this painting. I mean, this sounds funny. To study that, I've had the good fortune to study the Qingming Scroll at several points in my career. I first started using it as a teaching material, the whole scroll, and showing it to my students. And this was something an art historian suggested to me when I began to teach at Yale. And always the students said it was their favorite thing in the course. Much better than anything I ever did on my own. They loved the painting. And the painting is, many people love this painting inside of China and outside of China. So in the beginning, and then after teaching with it for a while, I decided to write an article about the painting and argued that we don't know what city this is. Most Chinese scholars think that this shows the capital of the Northern Sung, which was a city called Kaifeng. But I think that it just shows an idealized city. And what's interesting about the painting is that some things are very real. The painter, or maybe the painters who made this painting, specialized in architectural painting. So they did buildings with great accuracy, and these boats and the bridge, all of these structures, I think, give us a very vivid sense of what a city looked like at the time. But when I first came to Yale, the art historian who taught here was named Dick Barnhart. And as he always said to me, a painting is not a photograph. And what he meant was that if we look at this painting, it shows us things that we would not see if we could see in a photograph. But the painter can make the city, it can portray the city differently from the way it really was. So there are some key things that are missing in this painting. If you counted all the people in the painting, there are about, I think there are over 500 people, but only 20 are women. So you think, well, why is that? And yes, virtuous women weren't supposed to go outside, but the painter is painting an idealized city. And so he's erased all of the women who would have been outside. There are no poor people. There are no sick people. There's no garbage. We know that these were very large cities of several hundred thousand. Actually, the largest cities in North China in the year 1000 were over 1 million people, had populations over 1 million people. And so what I think is very challenging and just endlessly fascinating about this painting is the mix of what's real, like this bridge, and the boats and the houses, and then what's in the painter's imagination. A society where women don't go outside, a city that has no garbage, a city without poor people. And the I think a good way to think about this painting is that it was made to honor the ruler, the emperor, and praise his rule. And that is why all of the problems that we know that the city had to have are not visible in the painting. I hope you have fun making your bridges. Good luck.